All right, hey folks, Will here. We're going to get started just in about a few minutes, so just bear with the brother as we try to get some things out the way. Because trust me, there's a lot of stuff to get to, and we will try to get through this as quickly as human possibly, just because it's a lot. So, with that being said, guys, let's get to this. Today's date, July 27, 2019. God dang, we're almost to halfway. We're beyond half the year. Anyway, welcome to How the Frack We Got Here. Pretty much the show that takes the events and news of this week and try to make sense of it all. I'm your host, Will Buchanan. And on basically How the Frack We Got Here, this is an adult podcast, which means things of adult nature may be said and things of graphic nature may be shown. So viewer discretion is definitely advised. Aside from that, welcome. So let's go ahead and get into it. So there are a few things that we're going to get into. I did actually post last week, that about the Luzerne County in Pennsylvania. You know, the one that sent out letters to parents threatening to take away their kids if they didn't pay their school bills. Yeah, it looks like they're kind of changing their tune a little bit about that.
Believe it.
That's how State Representative Tara Toohill reacted when she heard about the letter sent to about 1,000 parents in the Wyoming Valley West School District. District officials say it was an attempt to collect some $20,000 of unpaid lunch bills. That letter read that children could be removed from their homes and placed into foster care if their parents did not pay up. The school district now admits it went too far in that letter and will send a second letter, a softer worded letter, to the parents next week. Toohill, a big supporter of foster care, says it should not be used as a threat. She insists that many of these parents may have financial needs and are not neglecting their children.
It doesn't help. It's very negative, and we want people to be able to reach out to schools, reach out to the government when they need help.
United States Senator Bob Casey expressed his concern about the letter today in two separate tweets. In one, he writes, "No child should have to imagine the horror of being ripped away from their parents because their family is struggling economically. These letters were callous and should never have happened."
So the interesting thing about this is just that not only that story, but at the same time, the other story of the other part of this that I was hoping to show. But really what actually happened, which I still think is just completely asinine and crazy, is that the CEO of Lacombe, if I ever pronounced that right, I think that's what I got right anyway. Apparently the CEO of a major coffee roasting corporation has stepped up and said, "Hey, we'll pay the bills on this. You know, it's like, for lack of a better word, it is almost amazing that you want to sit there and say, well, they're going to pay the bill for this, so we want to help out to where parents don't have to worry about it." And initially, the school district said no. Think about this. A donor was willing to turn around and sit there and say, "Hey, we'll pay the debt. We don't want anything. We don't want a name, airport, no strings attached. We just want to pay it to help out these parents." And initially, the school board told him no, which eventually they did change their mind and accepted the CEO's offer. But what's so crazy about those type of stories is just that you have kind people who have the means to help other people, and they were told no by a school board, only to turn around and when enough public shaming has happened, then they're like, "Oh, well, we didn't mean it like that. We didn't mean to word it too strong. We didn't mean that kind of wording where we're going to physically take away your kids and put them in foster care." After all the shit that's happening down south, I can see why parents are physically upset. And again, it amazes me so that school district is more worried about lunch debt than a kid's education. That tells you how fucked up public education has gotten these days. But again, I'm kind of glad that, common sense has came to light and they're actually going ahead and accept that man's offer. And a lot of parents don't have to worry about their kids being taken away from them, because I'm going to be honest. I don't have children. I have nieces and nephews that I pretty much consider my children. But if I ever have children and someone says that they're going to take my children away from me, better put me in the ground first. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, moving right along. The other big story that we had this week was really the whole idea of, basically the Mueller testimony. Now, not a lot really did come from this. And honestly, as I'm about to play this video, you're probably going to come to the same conclusion. But here's just a tidbit of what actually happened during that testimony.
Claimed that your report found there was no obstruction and that it completely and totally exonerated him. But that is not what your report said, is it?
Correct. It is not what the report said.
And now, reading from page 2 of volume 2 of your report that's on the screen, you wrote, quote, "If we had confidence after a thorough investigation of the facts that the president clearly did not commit obstruction of justice, we would so state. Based on the facts and the applicable legal standards, however, we are unable to reach that judgment," close quote. Now, does that say there was no obstruction?
No.
In fact, you are actually unable to conclude the president did not commit obstruction of justice. Is that correct?
Well, we, at the outset, determined that we, when it came to the president's culpability, we needed to go forward only after taking into account the OLC opinion that indicated that a president, a sitting president, cannot be indicted.
So the report did not conclude that he did not commit obstruction of justice. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And what about total exoneration? Did you actually totally exonerate the president?
No.
Now, in fact, your report expressly states that it does not exonerate the president.
It does.
And your investigation actually found, quote, multiple acts by the president that were capable of exerting undue influence over law enforcement investigations, including the Russian interference and obstruction investigations. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, Director Mueller, can you explain in plain terms what that finding means so the American people can understand it?
Well, the finding indicates that the president was not that the president was not exculpated for the acts that he allegedly committed.
In fact, you were talking about incidents, quote.
So I'm going to stop it right there just because for a lot of us that have actually followed this case and are still continuing to follow this case, nothing was really new that was said here. This was basically the Democrats' attempt to, I guess, simplify more of Mueller's testimony. Like I said, the Mueller report is still available, all 400 plus pages of it. And Mueller didn't really say anything different than what's in the report. What the Democrats were hoping is that Mueller would sit there and say, yes, the president should be indicted. Now, anybody who's actually read that report or has, seen a lot of people that have went over that report can sit there and tell you there are 13 instances, 13, that Mueller has specifically pointed out that are possible cases of obstruction of justice. This is things we already know. So the whole idea of him testifying really didn't help matters because a lot of people will still sit there and say, well, especially those hardline Trump supporters, because Trump supporters are, you know what it is? Trump supporters is kind of like the Mitt Romney people when Mitt Romney ran against then President Barack Obama. Was the whole thing, the entire campaign could be summed up in this very couple of sentences. We are not going to let this campaign be dictated by facts. And in the same sense, that's basically the Trump's campaign's MO. Now, I get the fact of what the Democrats were trying to do, and I get the fact of what they were trying to accomplish, but honestly, you're not going to get the American people to move forward unless you decide to move forward with impeachment and impeachment proceedings, I should say. So this actually becomes the next part. And this is the part where I say, although I'm not a Democrat, I sure as hell am not a Republican, Democrats at this point need to either get off the pot or start to roast. It's either one or two. Which is the next story I'm going to show here is that we're asking the Democrats, what's the next move?
For beginning an impeachment inquiry, why? What did the president do that you think deserves an impeachment inquiry?
The president has obstructed justice on 12 different occasions, even if you were to be of the opinion that he actually didn't get to go all the way through with it because Don McGahn did not follow through, the intent to obstruct justice is a crime as well. Beyond that, you had his campaign chair and his campaign deputy meet with a Russian operative associated with the GRU to hand over all kinds of polling data, not just once or twice, but over the course of the summer of 2016, to assist them in promoting the Internet Research Agency's efforts with Facebook and Twitter. This was an effort to coordinate with the Russians to intervene in the election. I think they are very compelling, and we should be required at this point in time to take action. Now, if we don't take action come September 1st, then we should just shut it down because we're not going to be able to do anything at all. I feel strongly that we should, but I think we're running out of time.
The majority of House Democrats disagree with you, and only a handful have come out in favor of impeachment proceedings in the last 2 days. I think maybe one has come out since the Mueller testimony ended. If your colleagues are not in favor of impeaching him now, what makes you think any are going to change their minds in the future? I mean, we've had Mueller testify, we've had the Mueller report. What more could change any minds?
So there are 94 members that have come out publicly. I would say there's easily another 20 to 30 that would, given the opportunity to do so. They're holding back in part out of respect to the Speaker. But I would say that after going home and spending 5 weeks in their constituencies, if that doesn't motivate them to do it, then I think we need to shut it down because, frankly, none of the other work we're doing is getting any traction whatsoever.
And she's right. She's honestly right. Now, at the time of that actual article, only 100 Democrats have publicly came out and went with impeachment in the House. And, of course, the response that she gave was that this is out of respect to Nancy Pelosi, who's currently the Speaker. So we decided, in my case, I had to ask Pelosi if I was able to do so, what's the holdup? And pretty much this is probably the closest answer we're going to get.
What you're doing in the courts. Now, some of your Democratic colleagues believe you're simply trying to run out the clock on impeachment. Are you trying
That's
to run
not
out the
true.
clock?
No, I'm not trying to run out the clock. Let's get sophisticated about this, okay? Okay?
But how long
Would that
do you
be?
think fights will take?
We will proceed when we have what we need to proceed, not one day sooner. And everybody has the liberty and the luxury to espouse their own position and to criticize me for trying to go down the path in the most determined, positive way. Again, their advocacy for impeachment only gives me leverage. I have no complaint with what they are doing, but I know Mueller, I keep calling him Special Counsel Mueller. Mr. Mueller said the other day, confirmed in the public mind that the president has obstructed justice. You know what he said. He could have exonerated him. He would have, he didn't. But he was not able to investigate the president's finances, personal, business, or otherwise. And that is what we are doing in the courts. And so I'm willing to take whatever heat there is there to say when the decision will be made in a timely fashion. This isn't endless. And when we have the best, strongest possible case, and that's not endless either. I mean, it may be endless in terms of the violations of the law that the president is engaged in. But that's what I say to you.
And I'm sorry, this is the part that bothers me about Pelosi. I mean, aside from the fact that she really shouldn't be House Speaker, it actually should be somebody else. She sat there and says, when we have what we need. What the fuck more are you waiting for? It's amazing how she named off exactly everything else. We had the Mueller report. Mueller testified. You had multiple people in the Trump administration testify. You have the literal roadmap, which is the Mueller report, that maps out 13 possible instances of obstruction of justice. Lady, what more the fuck you waiting for? Oh, we're going to investigate his finances. Well, there's a little problem there because, number one, Mukin, I can never pronounce his last name, but he's pretty much the doofus at the Treasury that is pretty much the roadblock for giving Trump's out tax returns. He is the literal wall that Trump always wanted. At the same time, even at the state level, Trump is suing his home state of New York to make sure that his personal taxes don't come out. And the reason he's using is that those are him as a private citizen. You're not a private citizen anymore. So again, Trump has learned through multiple times out of being out of court, he has sued, roadblock, conjunction, injunction his way out of a lot of shit. But Pelosi, out of everybody, is going to say the only way we're going to hit this man is through his finances. Forget the fact that we have the other, mounting evidence that we could use to proceed with impeachment. I've said this many times on this podcast, and I'll say it again. Democrats ran the year before last election. They ran off the simple fact of the matter is that they were going to make Donald Trump a one-term president by impeaching him. You ran on that campaign promise. And so far, only 100 of you have signed on and said, you know what, it's time to impeach this guy. And Nancy Pelosi and a lot of others want to sit on the pot. This is the reason why I sit there and say, where Democrats falter and Republicans succeed on is unity. Because the simple fact of the matter is, Pelosi knows at this point she doesn't have a lot of time to make a decision on this. Because unfortunately, in order to get impeachment processes going, the House Speaker has to initiate it. Which everybody knows, the road goes through Pelosi. So with that being said, unless she decides to move forward with impeachment, it doesn't happen. But at the same time, that window of impeachment is closing. And I mean closing soon. But her saying, I'm not trying to run out the clock, well, what is it the fuck you're actually trying to do? Because you're not going to get his finances anytime soon. And what amazes me so is that the opinion of the Department of Justice, keep in mind, it's an opinion. It is not law. A president can be indicted. It is the opinion of the DOJ that they don't do it. Which amazes me so, because we almost indicted Nixon. Nixon skated before he could be indicted. So again, what's the skip to sit there and say that Trump can't be indicted? At the same time, you have Pelosi and Democrats can't unify on this. But Republicans can unify on everything. That is the reason why to me, that's why I think they're more successful. They're more successful at getting their shit passed than Democrats, because Democrats will be unified under a banner, but once they're in, they split. Republicans, no matter what, will vote for the party. They will toe that line. And it amazes me so how Pelosi can sit there and say, I'm not trying to run out the clock, when in essence, you're running out the clock. And at that point, it'll be like, what do we even vote you back in for if you're not going to do what you say? In the words of Jon Stewart, do your fucking job. But anyway, but switching gears on this is kind of a more heartache one. Like I said, if you haven't noticed by now, ICE has been empowered to be the new Gestapo. They are removing people, illegal immigrants from different areas. And the next following story is really no different, but it's kind of heartbreaking. So just be prepared to probably get some tissues out.
Floor don't. Floor don't. They got him on the ground. We have an appointment. My daughter's sick. She has to go to the hospital. That's where we're going, and you guys are doing this?
Yes, we can, ma'am. What's that?
She needs therapy. My daughter, she needs therapy. It's a baby.
She needs therapy. What kind of therapy?
She needs...
Oh, we just need to talk to him. You can go. Do you have any proof that you're here legally?
You said you have a warrant for my arrest, right?
Yeah, you're back. You are in the United States.
Okay, so can you show me the warrant?
So do you have proof that you are here legally?
Do you have the warrant?
Show proof and we'll leave.
Roll it down or I'm going to break it, okay?
You can't break it.
Yeah, I can.
It's my property, so you
I don't
can't.
care whose property it is. You roll the window down or I'm going to break it. That's how it's going to go, okay? talk to you and take you back to where you need to go, so you can either get out of the car, or we're gonna break the window and you can get out of the car. Which one do you want to do?
Able to do that. Like, I understand what you're trying to do,
You get it the hard way or the easy way. It's up to you.
but you know
Are you gonna get out or not?
you're not able to do that.
Floor don't. Floor don't.
It's not, you're not
It's gonna be fine.
No, it's not. I'm scared.
No digan nada. Sorry.
So in that sense, to say it's a very sad story as far as that goes. But honestly, this is Trump's America. This is the one thing that if this is not the most frightening outcome for illegal immigrants, that people are like, this is just tip of the iceberg. I mean, you have ICE agents mostly at every other cities that are going around and asking people, do you have do you have legal documentation? You know what that reminds me of? The Gestapo. Do you have papers? Papers, please? That's what it sounds like to me. And no matter what people say, I'm like, you cannot argue that ICE has now been empowered to basically go up to people that they believe are not here legally and ask them on site. Keep in mind, this shit happened in Arizona during Barack Obama's presidency, where the Arizona governor at the time, Jan Brewer, was in favor of pretty much having police stop people when they believe they're illegal immigrants and have them show papers on site without warrant or probable cause. You know that shit that happened back in 2008? This shit now 2019 is happening. And now ICE is empowered to do that. Now, I will sit there and say it best. There is an immigration issue here, but it's not the people. It's the fucking system. Why does it take so long for someone to basically become naturalized citizens of the United States? It takes up 10 years. Why? At the same time, why is our immigration system so fucked up to the point to where, people who are fleeing areas, because make no mistake about it, anybody that you speak to from Mexico and from those other countries, when they say they're leaving areas that might as well be war zones, believe them. Why else would you travel this far to come to the United States unless back home is just as fucking dangerous? I'm not going to knock them for that. I'm not going to knock that man because, number one, being a black man and you see police pull you over, they say, well, come on, get out the car. Our survival rate doesn't really increase. And I can't blame the guy. But at the same time, the woman had a point. In which, for anybody that doesn't know, the rights that you have, if you are being detained, they do have to provide documentation. It isn't just that if you don't have it, they can immediately take it. No, they had to provide documentation. They had to provide legal rights to proceed. And if they don't have that, which in this case, they never did show the reason. So the only thing they actually had is what? It's like, well, if you show us that you're here legally, we'll leave. Really? That sounds very Gestapo of you. And at the same time, I fear for my other brothers and sisters out there, like I said, it amazes me so how we can empower immigration officials to deport people, but yet we can't empower our immigration system to actually combat or take down the illegal immigration that we have. Because we are a nation of immigrants. Let's just be honest. We are a nation of immigrants. No ifs, ands, buts about it. At the same time, we should be able to welcome other people. It's not like we don't have the fucking room. It's not like we don't have the fucking jobs. But the thing about it is, it goes back to that phobia, and not just xenophobia, but it goes back to that phobia, which I still find amazing, that, no matter what, and if your skin is not anything else but white for some odd reason, for a lot of those people out there, not all white folks, because not all white folks are crazy, but for that specific group out there who think illegal aliens are the worst things on earth, those are the ones I'm talking about, that just seem to just, every time Trump talks about a wall, which is still funny, he's still talking about that wall, but he's not saying Mexico's paying for it anymore, are the ones mainly cheering. And speaking of Trump, because he says he picks the best people, he now decided to pick a spokesperson for the Treasury Department. And yeah, if he picks the best people, well, they always come with stigmas.
Pick for the top spokeswoman job at Treasury, former Fox News contributor Monica Crowley repeatedly spread conspiracy theories about then-President Barack Obama. And this comes after a 2017 K-File investigation into Crowley, which actually ended her bid to serve as a press secretary for Trump's National Security Council in a plagiarism scandal. K-File's Andrew Kaczynski has been working on this investigation and joins us. So what did you find?
So we actually went through all of her old blog posts. You mentioned in the intro that she was a Fox News contributor. She actually was also a radio host, and she maintained this blog where she wrote a lot of conspiracy theories about former President Obama, suggesting at times he was a Muslim. During the whole controversy around the Ground Zero Mosque, she wrote this post where she sort of suggested Obama was loyal to Islam, and then made this statement: can he be both loyal to Islam and the United States? Which is, I mean, even if President Obama was a Muslim, what would, somebody who's Muslim can be loyal to the United States
right.
too. But there's also this very strange line where she referenced his comments about 57 states where he had that gaffe, and she claimed that was actually a secret reference to Islam as well. So
wow.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff that she was writing in these blog posts was really, really fringe.
And it's out there, right? As you point out, she had, there's plenty there in terms of the blog, in terms of the number of posts. So what is she saying about it? What is Treasury saying? I mean, what are we hearing in response to everything you found?
Yeah, we reached out to Treasury at least, and her a few times, 2 or 3 over the past few days. We haven't actually heard anything. She was, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin tweeted a pic of her yesterday, swearing her in. So she's officially on the job now. But it's very strange, some of these comments, claiming that President Obama was, going to conform the U.S. to Sharia law. So it's just very strange, fringe stuff you don't usually see from the chief spokesman for. No.
And that's the truth. But he only picks the best people, as he always says. But it never ceases to amaze me that everybody he picks, 9 times out of 10, they bought the job, they're from Fox News, or they're a friend of a friend who paid into his campaign. This individual is no different at all. Monica Crowley, if you don't remember, she was on Fox and Friends, and she was right there with the entire thing about, well, Obama's a Kenyan. How could he support Islam and America? In the same sense, how Christians can support Christianity and still be Americans. Same deal. But at the same time, it amazed me so that someone that already comes with a bias seems to somehow get put in and sworn in as the spokesperson for the Treasury Department. That alone should be fucking scary. But then again, we probably will be expecting a resignation or a firing. Give about 6 months. But another story I wanted to get into, which I did talk about, was this horrible attack on these lesbian couples pictured here. Now, in this case, it was very sad. They actually they were actually assaulted, basically by a group of individuals, and that picture has went viral. However, 4 teenagers have been arrested for that, and with ages, which kind of worried me that not only were the 4 teenagers were arrested, but their ages were 15 to 17, and it was considered a hate crime. It's a and rightly so. But the thing about this is, which bothers me, and this is the reason why, for a lot of my LGBTQ community brothers and sisters, this is what they've been trying to talk about. Simple fact of the matter is, the rhetoric that's being pushed out there drives the violence, because there's nobody actually saying a lot out there to where you shouldn't go after somebody just because they're different than you. But Trump is inciting, he's gaslighting this. So we really should be surprised, considering his take on LGBTQ members of the military and banning them. At the same time, those that were serving were released, and at the most time, he's basically he's basically pining to his voter base, which is honestly, and I will say this, and I will always stand on this, his voter base is nothing more than a bunch of, I'm not going to say uninformed, because a lot of them are uninformed, but a lot of them are living out a fantasy of watching a man do something that they can do whatever they want without consequence. And people see that, and people love it. And that's
what appeared when Trump spoke at a student summit Tuesday. This one included golf clubs and a 2-headed eagle clutching golf clubs and a pile of cash. An eagle with 2 heads is a symbol of the Russian Federation, and the banner says 45 is a puppet in Latin.
A Virginia graphic designer says he made it last year but never expected it to make news. We're told the mistake was made by the organizers, not the White House. A member of the video team apparently grabbed the image from Google Photos. That person has been fired.
Question I have is, why did they get fired? Well, let me stop, because that's let me stop that. We all know why he got fired, but at the same time, I almost want to go, did he really do something wrong? Did he really? Because the simple fact of the matter is just that, what did he actually say or do that would honestly get him this hell? Personally, it's to me, it's just like, well, what did he do? Because did he do something wrong? Did he do something right? I mean, it's not always funny to where it's not always funny to where you look at the presidential seal and it's just like, oh, well, it's a golf club and he literally has the president is a puppet. Okay, I can see that. That's probably something you shouldn't put on there. But again, it's funny. At the same time, no one stopped the president. No one stopped Baby Huey from being in front of it, which actually just made it worse, but actually at the same time made it funny. I thought it was a hoot either way. But beyond that, but moving right along, because like I said, speaking about the election, they did already talk about when Mueller has sat there and warned about Russian interference, and you would think that because he testified, that he's already said it, that they would do something. Yeah, you would think.
To interfere in our election. A bipartisan report from the Senate Intelligence Committee details how Russia targeted voting systems in all 50 states and warns the threat persists today. Our Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas joins us now. And Pierre, this echoes and elaborates on Robert Mueller's testimony.
That's right, George. Good morning. And it's not just Russia. Intelligence officials fear China, Iran, and other countries could target the 2020 election. And we're learning disturbing new detail about just how pervasive the Russian attack on the 2016 election actually was. George, the new Senate intelligence report says the Russians likely attempted to find weaknesses, as you said, in the voting systems of all 50 states, probing and scanning the voting systems of at least 21 states. According to the report, the Russians stole or looked at the personal data of hundreds of thousands of voters from at least 2 states, including Illinois. The good news is that the U.S. government and states have improved election security. But, George, the chilling question is exactly why was Russia snooping around all those voter systems in 2016, and exactly what are they planning for the future?
Well,
George?
that's the big question. What are they doing right now? Meantime, in the wake of all these warnings, Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell yesterday blocked an attempt to update election security.
George, that's right. Just a day after former special counsel Bob Mueller issued that stark warning that Russians are attacking us, quote, as we sit here, Senator McConnell blocked election security measures calling for the use of paper ballots in all states, saying that Democrats were simply playing politics on the heels of Mueller's testimony. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said that Republicans are putting their heads in the sand. So, George, more proof they can't seem to agree on anything here in Washington.
Really, what is there to agree about? Here's the reason why it is such a dangerous thing to be the Senate Majority Leader. Because there's a little unchecked power in this. Because, like, for all those that have watched Schoolhouse Rock or have actually learned civics or actually how legislation works, you already know off the bat that bills are created in the House, passed in the House, moved to the Senate, and then passed in the Senate in order to be up on the president's desk. Here's the problem with this. The Senate Majority Leader can have the ability to block any bill from coming to the floor. That is a big-ass uncheck of power, and McConnell knows it. And McConnell, because for the simple fact of the matter, has been accused multiple times of being a compromised individual, has prevented those bills from actually being seen. So, what does that tell us? That basically tells us that anything that gets moved forward from that scenario, 9 times out of 10, is not going to be viewed, not going to be heard. Chances are not even going to get seen the light of day. And McConnell does this purposely. We should not be surprised by this because this is what he does. So, the simple fact of the matter is, with the election coming up, you would think that bills will be introduced to ensure that basically this type of shit doesn't happen. Unfortunately, it is going to happen. And Marsha Blackburn, good old Tennessee, or I like to call her the biggest Trump cheerleader this side of Lindsey Graham, has decided to join in along with blocking. If Mitch McConnell blocked bills regarding election security, she blocked bills. She actually basically gave her vote to block a bill that pretty much says if a outside entity, basically anybody from China, Russia, or any outside the country, contacts the political campaign with information about their opponent, they can prevent them from not reporting it. Yes, I wish I could make that up. That is actually a true thing. So again, you would think with everything going on that they would make sure that they're damnedest to make sure that this election is as fair and as unbiased and as protected as humanly possible. Nope. Shouldn't be surprised because it's compromised. But moving right along in the area of business, our up and down economy again is back down to 2.1 growth rate in the second quarter. We actually jumped up to a little bit from 3.1 in the first quarter, which only goes to tell you that those tariffs that I told you about are now in effect. And they are going to affect the way our market is going up and down. And you really should not be surprised by that. And I hate to say it because that's just the way it is. The trade wars that we have are not benefiting us. As you can tell, they are hurting us across the board, from jobs, from groceries, from electronics. Anything you can imagine are about to get hiked up in price, which means that consumer spending will slow down. And at the same time, we're having all the great ingredients before we actually have an economic downfall. So anybody who still feels, and I'll be honest with you, the only ones who are really benefiting from this current economic climate right now are all those that have at least 6 zeros in their bank account. I wish I could make that up, but we really shouldn't be surprised. But moving right along, there is one video I do want to show you guys that I think y'all might find interesting, and it might actually guide you to Equifax to see if you actually can claim some of this.
Reporting company Equifax announced that it has agreed to pay $700 million for a massive security breach in 2017. As part of the deal, at least $300 million will go to victims, with potentially another $125 million added if that money runs out. $175 million will be paid to the states, and $100 million will be paid in penalties for failing to protect consumer information. Now, Equifax is accused of failing to fix a known security flaw that allowed hackers to steal social security numbers and personal information of nearly 150 million people. It took the company more than 6 weeks to detect the attack. So what does this settlement mean for you? Well, first, all U.S. customers will be able to get 6 free credit reports a year from Equifax. If you were impacted by the breach, you are entitled to 10 years of free credit monitoring, or you can be reimbursed $125 if you already have the service. And if you became a victim of identity theft, you could be compensated for time and money spent to fix the issue of up to $20,000. David.
That's right, folks. Welcome to the Equifax sweepstakes. And I did look into this. It is legit. Again, a lot of people who probably posted this on Facebook are wondering, is it legit? Is it a scam? It is legit. If you believe that you are, if your credit has been attacked, or if you feel like you're a victim because of the Equifax breach, go ahead and give it a shot. I mean, simple fact of the matter is they settled almost $700 million to tell you that there are a lot of probably pissed off people out there. So if you think that, you want 10 years of free credit monitoring or a $125 check, money's money. Go ahead and give it a shot, personally. But yep, you can go to Equifax.com and then you basically fill in the information that's needed there and shoot your shot. You might get lucky. You might get $125. But anyway, moving right along. ASAP Rocky, which a lot of people are wondering who, is still in Sweden. And the thing about that is, it's just that if you don't remember, about a few weeks ago, he was actually in Sweden regarding an assault against a Sweden diplomat and was charged with assault and basically has been in jail since then. He has claimed that the conditions are horrible. Well, it's jail. It's not exactly the Four Seasons. So, of course, Trump, because Melania and Kanye Sunken Place West and Kim Kardashian are all vying to see about this man getting released, Trump sat there and tweeted about, how the lovely Swedish Prime Minister, I will talk to him and I will get him bailed out because this is just a mark on the African American community. Right. Anyway, here's where ASAP Rocky's lawyer had to say about that.
Tweet, and has this been known to him? Does he knows the support that he's getting back home from this? Have you told him about Mr. Trump, the US president?
There's been a lot of support from a lot of different people, and Rakim Myers is, of course, very thankful for everybody that has reached out.
Specifically, Mr. Trump?
For everyone. It's hard to describe, but if you use one's imagination and feel and think about what the situation is to sit in a jail when you have a feeling that you're absolutely innocent, being incarcerated, being in isolation most hours of the day, and also living under the dark cloud of this process and what will it bring. It's been a very hard time for him.
Do you buy into this idea that he's been singled out?
No. I think that we have not a racist society here. I think that my last name is a living proof that anyone can make it here, and I don't see that angle at all. I think that the Swedish rules that are surrounding the whole situation about jail is too harsh. I think that it's out of time. And I think that the prosecutors are too trigger happy.
I mean, he's a lawyer. He's going to spin it anyway. But it just amazed me so about ASAP Rocky, because keep in mind, he's the same guy that talked about when pressed about Ferguson about a few years ago, he sat there and said, what do I give a fuck about Ferguson? I'm rich. I live in Beverly Hills. It doesn't pertain to me. And yet you want a public outcry because your dumbass is in jail now. I call that poetic justice. Could be just me. But anyway, just thought it was interesting that, Trump did turn around and, try to trash the Swedish Prime Minister about not giving in his demands because Trump likes to be a dictator or play a dictator and hope to God everybody bends his will. Good luck with that. Beyond that, some other news in here. Sprint and T-Mobile will be merging. What does that basically mean? Which I'm still surprised that went through. Well, that basically means that your selection of cellular providers has went from 4 down to 3. Keep in mind, T-Mobile has bought Sprint. Who knew that T-Mobile... Well, I can't say that. There's actually 4. So technically you have what? Verizon, AT&T, I guess T-Mobile now that they've accumulated Sprint, and you have Cricket. Which... Who knew that we'd still, in this day and age, be still talking about cricket? Still around. But aside from that, of course, you have your prepaid services, your Metro, your Boost Mobile, and Virgin Mobile, which they actually have to get rid of as part of their process. Which I'm still surprised this actually went through. But then again, the DOJ is ran by a completely different set of people now, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised about that. But again, I just think this is leading more to monopolies eventually, and if left unchecked, this is probably going to be more that the consumer will be paying for. But again, I'm still surprised it went through. Anyway, going right along, there was a story right here that just made me mad. Again, I don't think it really got a lot of attention, but I think it does definitely need to get that.
Students have been suspended from their fraternity after posing in a racially charged photo. They held guns in front of a sign marking the spot where a civil rights icon was found murdered decades ago. Mark Strassman reports that sign has been repeatedly vandalized.
In the photo, 3 Ole Miss fraternity brothers posed with grins and guns and echoes of a rebel yell. Behind them, a bullet-riddled sign marking the spot where 14-year-old Emmett Till's body was found in 1955. Mississippi investigative journalist Jerry Mitchell.
You see the photograph and you just go, what?
This Instagram photo drew outrage, but nothing like the disturbing one taken of Till 64 years ago for Jet magazine. It showed the 14-year-old's mutilated body lying in an open casket. He had been tortured, shot, and dumped in a river. Let the world see what they did to my boy, his mother said.
This was somebody's child that was brutally murdered, senselessly murdered. And that served as a catalyst for people to say, no more, never again.
Nicole Moore directs education at the National Center for Civil and Human Rights in Atlanta.
When we see images like these 3 young men desecrating the sign, it reminds us that the work isn't done.
This is the 3rd time the sign has been vandalized. Other Mississippi markers to Till have been routinely vandalized and shot at. Kappa Alpha fraternity suspended the 3 students this week, but they remain enrolled at the University of Mississippi. In a statement, the school's interim chancellor, Larry Sparks, said, "This image is offensive and hurtful, but as a state institution, we have limits on the tools available to remedy this offensive behavior." As for that vandalized Emmett Till sign in Mississippi, this one will replace it in October. Big difference, it's bulletproof. And nor are those 3 Ole Miss students. They could potentially face a civil rights investigation by the Department of Justice.
Now, it's just it gives them those stories like that. It never ceases to amaze me. And the woman at the Civil Rights Museum creator said it best: the work's not done. And the simple fact of the matter is that the ignorance that you have, where individuals can take something such as the story of Emmett Till and the historical landmark right there, and pretty much use it for target practice, and it amazes me so. And this is the part that amazed me so. It amazed me so that they could turn around and use that sign as target practice, but at the same time be mad when, a person of color decides not to bend the knee to the American flag and say that you're disrespecting our flag. I find that very hypocritical. But again, I am glad that they are replacing the sign with a bulletproof sign. But again, more can be done with that case. Now, usually in most cases, I would there and say, yeah, the fraternity suspended them. The school could probably suspend them because technically that's racially motivated. No matter how you look at that, it's willfully ignorant but racially motivated. And at the same time, the school would say, well, we're within the limits of what we can do. You can expel them. I've seen students in previous stories have been expelled for assault, for rape, for battery, for violence. They've been expelled. Now, in this case, this is bad press for that school, and it was bad press for Kappa Alpha, which is all the more reason why they suspended them. Although it's interesting why they say suspend, but not kicked out of the fraternity. I only can sit there and wonder how they're going to try to spin this, but again, it just goes to show you that beyond it, the work's not done. Now, moving forward, there's another story that's just it's shocking, but then again, I shouldn't be surprised, especially when it comes to our military.
Military units are under intense scrutiny today over troubling incidents on opposite sides of the world. A human smuggling investigation led to the mass arrest of 16 Marines from the 1st Marine Division yesterday at Camp Pendleton in California. 2 other Marines were arrested and charged earlier this month. Now, the accusations range from smuggling illegal immigrants into the country to drug-related offenses.
And in a separate case, an entire platoon of elite Navy SEALs was sent home from Iraq over allegations of sexual misconduct and drinking while deployed. Jamie Yukis is at Camp Pendleton, that's north of San Diego. Jamie, what more do we know?
Well, this is what we know right now, Tony. Those 16 Marines are in the brig on the base, and authorities here say they've already questioned 8 additional Marines. Marines are known for their discipline and dedication to country, but in the past month, authorities here have arrested 18 Marines from this base, some for allegedly helping ferry undocumented immigrants into this country in exchange for money.
It's a shock to the system.
Thursday's arrest of 16 Marines occurred in dramatic fashion in front of their own entire unit.
The release of this information was really so we could be completely transparent about what happened today. It was a very large arrest.
The Marines were made to line up in morning formation, like this one the Marine Corps filmed earlier at California's Camp Pendleton. They were then arrested for offenses that range from human smuggling to drug-related activities. All 16 suspects are members of the oldest active duty Marine division, headquartered here just 60 miles north of the Mexican border. None of the Marines were among the 6,600 active duty and National Guard troops assigned to bolster border patrol at the southwestern border. The Marines say Thursday's arrest stemmed from an earlier arrest of 2 more Camp Pendleton Marines near the Mexican border in early July. The pair were pulled over with 3 undocumented immigrants in their back seat and charged with human smuggling. Both have pleaded not guilty. According to authorities, the undocumented immigrants said they agreed to pay the Marines $8,000. The Marines said it was not their first time doing this, and Border Patrol expanded the investigation, which led to Thursday's arrests.
If they are in fact found guilty of those crimes, then they'll be held appropriately accountable for that.
In a separate case on the 4th of July, an entire platoon of 22 elite Navy SEALs in Iraq allegedly held a drunken party. That not only violates regulations against consuming alcohol in Iraq, but there have also been allegations of sexual assault.
When questioned, the whole platoon from SEAL Team 7 in Iraq refused to speak with investigators. When their commander ordered them home on Wednesday, he said he, quote, lost confidence in the team's ability to accomplish the mission. Vlad?
Kinda says a lot, doesn't it? I mean, from that standpoint, you really can't. There's no words. I mean, aside from the fact that you have Marines on this side, drug smuggling and human smuggling, and then you have drunk Navy SEALs, and Lord knows what they did over there. It's a very black eye to our armed forces, but again, it does shine a light on a lot of issues out there that honestly need to be addressed. And I mean, it could be the fact that soldiers aren't being paid enough. Well, we know soldiers aren't being paid enough, but they're definitely not being cared for when they come back. But this just does shine a light on the nature of things that are happening over there that just really needs to be addressed. But anyway, our next to last story is something that I'm probably going to sit there and say out the bat at the end what I think about it. And it might annoy some of you guys. But let's just go ahead and get into the story that I'm going to go ahead and play as before we get to our good news segment.
Epstein is on suicide watch after being found on the floor of his cell at a New York City jail. The multimillionaire is awaiting trial after his arrest earlier this month on sex trafficking charges. Here's Mola Lengi with new reporting tonight.
CBS News has learned Jeffrey Epstein is now under round-the-clock watch at the Metropolitan Correctional Center after what appears to have been an attempted suicide. Law enforcement sources say Epstein was found lying on the floor of his jail cell earlier this week, semi-conscious, despondent, and crying with slight bruising around his neck. According to CBS News sources, it seems Epstein's clothing was used in the apparent attempt. The 66-year-old was treated at the jail's infirmary for non-life-threatening injuries. Epstein had been at the correctional facility in an isolated cell with 30-minute wellness checks since last Thursday. The former hedge fund manager, who once called the world's rich and powerful his friends, was arrested on July 6th, accused of sex trafficking and sexually abusing dozens of underage girls as young as 14 from 2002 to 2005.
We would prefer that Jeffrey Epstein stay alive
and face justice, which he so richly deserves.
Lisa Bloom represents several women who claim Epstein sexually abused them.
Prosecutors may very well argue that a suicide attempt indicates consciousness of guilt. Why else would somebody want to take their own life unless they had done some terrible things and were about to face justice for it?
And Mola is outside the jail tonight. And Mola, what are your sources telling you tonight?
Well, Nora, law enforcement sources are telling us that officials here at the correctional center are reviewing internal security cameras to try to figure out exactly what happened inside Epstein's jail cell. Meanwhile, a trial date has not yet been set in his sex trafficking case, but Epstein, who has pleaded not guilty to all charges, is due back in court next Wednesday, Nora.
Okay, so get into that. Number one, if you're trying to hang yourself in jail before your court date, that to me says you're fucking guilty. And chances are you'll be found guilty. And you don't want to take the risk that probably what will happen is that you're going to wind up in jail with some dudes who are going to treat you the same way you treat those girls. But what kills me about this whole thing is, and correct me if I'm wrong for anybody who's watching this podcast right now, what happened to the Me Too movement on this kind of stuff? You think that they would be praising this? Praising this is the fact that, justice is going to get served. This is going to happen. Everybody who's ever assaulted women needs to face the music. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but they seem very quiet. And I mean deafeningly quiet. Some fact of the matter is that they finally got They finally got Bill Cosby. They're trying to get R. Kelly. But aside from Weinstein, Spacey, and everybody else, they seem deafeningly quiet. Now, don't get me wrong about Epstein, because Epstein is associated with Trump, because Trump only associates himself with pedophiles, predators, and rapists. It should be no different that he himself is a pedophile and predator himself. So, not surprised that Epstein is trying to off himself before his actual trial date, but I'm just surprised that all those so-called movements out there are dangerously quiet, in the sense that this will be the perfect moment for them to sit there and go, hey, this is what we worked for, but surprisingly quiet. Now, I could be wrong about this, and if I am wrong, please show me, because I've yet to find any news publications out there that says otherwise. But again, I just find it very interesting that the Me Too movement seems to be very quiet about something like this when they were deafening against Bill Cosby and others. But moving right along, we're going to get to our good news segment. What is our good news segment? In a world of doom and gloom, and I know later on How the Frack We Got Here, we do talk about a lot of things that don't really leave a smile on our face, but it's the weekend. You want to smile. You want to be happy. You want to enjoy life. And so we actually have a couple of stories. This first one I thought was pretty cool, where it just reminds me, and I always said it best, a girl can do anything a boy can do. Where 8-year-old girl is told she can't play baseball, told, mind you, she can't play baseball, but she can do this kind of stuff. And hopefully Twitter will play. I'm hoping. It may or may not, really. It's gotta be that kind of day that Twitter wants to play sometimes, and then it doesn't. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen. That's okay. Oh, wait a minute. We might have something, sports fans. Nope, it's going to be a no. Anyway, so pretty much, all she wanted to do was play baseball. So you actually have her literally showing other things on here, and I kind of wish one of these things would play to where I could actually show what's going on. She even got to the point to where she got to meet the Toronto Blue Jays and Vladdy, which is one of the more premier players out there now, and she got to meet her heroes. Even the women that's actually inspired the movie A League of Their Own. There we go. And really, that's very impressive, really, for her. And it's like I said, I don't have children, but her meeting her heroes and things of that nature, I thought were pretty cool. And I always said it best, and people can argue with me all day that they want. I still sit there and say we should be empowering our boys and girls. We should empower them and let them know that there are no limits. That is the truth. As a girl, if you want to play baseball or football or any other sport that you think that will probably slam the door in your face, fuck that. Kick that motherfucker in. You've seen what the USA women's soccer team has done, and they've won twice, mind you. And I love the fact that because it does empower it, and I'm all for that. In the same sense as a guy, in the same sense as a guy, don't sit there and think just because you were told no doesn't mean you can't do it. And I love the fact that her parents are encouraging this young woman to do that because that's more of what's needed these days. But we're right along, paying it forward, as I like to always say. This man actually leaves a $1,000 tip for a pregnant waitress. And I thought that was cool because apparently she was 5 months in, the guy had noticed, and left a $1,000 tip. Now, I'm going to be honest, the only way I'm leaving a $1,000 tip is if I ever get that well off in life. But again, I think it's kind of cool where the whole thing of paying it forward comes from. If you don't know what that means, it means just paving the way for somebody else. Give you a prime example. Say, for instance, that if I did come up in the world or won a winning Powerball, that I tipped somebody like that waitress $3,000. I like to think that waitress would go out and do something, not monetary, but do something for someone else. And like I said, really paying it forward is honestly just providing one random act of kindness to a stranger and just hoping it passes along. Because honestly, that type of humanity makes me smile, and that makes me actually have hope for the world. But beyond that, music-wise, there's you ever want to meet your heroes? Really meet your heroes, whether it's music, sports, what have you. Well, this 14-year-old that I'm about to show, blind from birth, was actually a piano person and a piano prodigy, I should say, and he got to meet his idol, Billy Joel. And if this video plays, which I'm kind of wondering if it will, they actually played Piano Man together. I think it's about as much we're going to get out of this. But I just thought that was cool just because the simple fact of the matter is, it's just that, for a person who has come to overcome adversity, because apparently he was actually a kid that got bullied a lot and got taunted. But the simple fact of the matter is, the man can play the piano. And love the fact that Billy Joel is actually encouraging that. And again, it's always a good thing to actually see your heroes encourage kids to do the same thing. And I thought that was pretty cool. So the last story I got here, guys, is I like to call it how to basically buy back the block. This couple that actually met weren't actually married at first. This woman actually hired this man to basically as an electrical contractor to work on her home. Next thing you know, they talk, they date, they get married, and then they begin to restore homes in their neighborhood. And they've actually planted gardens, orchards, and what actually wound up happening is just that because of them working and buying back their block, businesses are starting to notice that now and are starting to open up areas in their neighborhood. And I've always said it best, and I have to give it to Rick Ross because he said it first. The only way you change your environment is to buy it. And this is what those people have done. They have turned around and flipped houses and began to buy. I can't knock that. That is a brilliant, beautiful concept. And it does pay off. I mean, if you want to change the environment and you have the means to do it, you should. I mean, that's what I would do. If I had the money, I would turn around and take my environment. And the only way you get to change the environment is to basically be of impact to it. And I love the fact that what they did, although it was flipping houses, but still, you still can change your environment through many other ways. But just thought that was a feel-good story, and again, gives me hope for the world. But that's going to be the end of our podcast for this today, guys. And thank you guys for all sticking with me because the internet right now does not like me, but that's okay. We got through it anyway. Besides from this, my other show, Offense Podcast, will be later on tonight at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., and I will have some folks with me there. But I'm not the only guy that does podcast out here. My other buddy, I'll start with him, Thomas Reed, a.k.a. Mountain Puncher, who's currently at a con right now. Hopefully he is working out well for his cosplay. Usually has a fitness podcast to be determined where he basically goes over things as far as workouts, nutrition, his own personal testimony. Aside from today, this man usually stays in the gym all 7 days. But again, he wants to be able to show people what he's done, because if I can show you the before and after pictures of what he used to look like, you're probably gonna be sitting there going, "Damn!" But he actually is, as he says, lives to obtain his zenith. And if you want to know what that zenith is, you got to watch the Be Determined podcast. Usually every Saturday at 3 p.m. I believe he'll probably be doing a later on in the day until when he comes back from the con. Aside from that, our other brothers at arms. I'll start with Vaughn. ACA1 Weatherspoon on Facebook, BBZA on YouTube, has several podcasts of his own. He actually started off with the VI, get that reference, VST, which is a shortened podcast over various things, music, video games, just various news that you might be wanting to know. Interactive show, just like mine. He actually has Rhythmness also, where it's a podcast where you reminisce over the rhythm, where he takes musical albums, both past, present, and upcoming, and literally tries to rate them to a 4-tier system. If you want to know what that 4-tier system is, you have to watch Rhythmness to find out. He also has Random as Fuck with Uncle VZ. What is Random as Fuck? Random as Fuck is pretty much the pool of ratchetness we sometimes dip our toes into to take a break from life and have a chuckle. Some videos make you think, some videos make you cry, some videos will make you wonder. Like in this case, my favorite video is the lady that's at a Burger King restaurant that is currently on fire, and she's waiting for her change while the rest of the Burger King employees are sitting outside and filming her. Yes, it's an actual video. It still makes me laugh. But all of Vaughn's podcast, his podcast schedule can be found under his Facebook page, A7 One Spoon, and you'll be able to see when those podcasts will be able to go live and go from there. Our other brother, Trace Vaughn. I just basically mixed the two guys' names together. Sorry, Vaughn, Trace. But anyway, Trace Brown on Facebook, DJ King Anyway on YouTube, has a couple podcasts of his own. He actually has the Bump Down. What's the Bump Down? It is music, culture, knowledge, and numbers. It is pretty much what's hot on the charts, what's hot on the underground, and upcoming artists. And if you ever had an inkling or just curious about the recording industry and just want to know the inner workings, this is the guy to listen to. Aside from that, he also does play music you want to upload to him, and so does Vaughn. So if you want to do that, reach out to A711 on Facebook, Trace Brown on Facebook, and they'll be able to give you the information on how you can upload music to them and have it played on their podcast. Trace also has the Smoke of Truth, as I like to call it, the in-your-face, check your ego at the door, unorthodox podcast, where Trace, if you haven't talked to him, very, very unorthodox, but very intelligent as well. And he does speak on a level that, like I said, he speaks on a truth level. The truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off. But if you're not of the faint of heart and you're willing to sit there and have that real conversation, then the Smoke Truth podcast is where you want to be at. And also my other brother, John Wingnut, who's also was in here. I appreciate that, John. Also, Adam, I appreciate you in here as well. Wingnut has Wingnut Gaming. What is Wingnut Gaming? Wingnut Gaming is basically my buddy John's take on first-person shooters and just streaming. He actually is pretty good at Call of Duty and Battlefield, and dare I say he plays Fortnite now. Yay. Anyway, that's just my opinion on Fortnite. If you love it, you love it. Me, I personally hate it. But again, John is all about the first-person shooters, and he's all about the community, and he's all about conversation and being social. So if you just hit him up, Wingnut Gaming on Facebook when the streams go live, and like, share, and subscribe from there. And all of us do have YouTube pages. So if you actually look up BigBZA.podcast, DJ King 80 Wayne, How the Frack We Got Here, and Optimus Podcast, all of those are active YouTube pages to where you can like, share, and subscribe and be able to see every podcast we've done so far. So, with that being said, guys, I do have to say at the end of the How the Frack We Got Here, it's all about staying informed. What is staying informed? Staying informed means that you're not taking everything at face value. That means you're going beyond that, looking into it, really trying to find the truth through various research, and being able to share what you know with others and how you did it in order to inspire them to do the same. An informed community can make a lot better decisions than an uninformed one, because an uninformed one got us Trump, and that's how the frack we got here. So thank you guys for all watching, and sorry about the technical difficulties, but I promise I'll get those cleared up the next time. Aside from that, have a wonderful Saturday, and hope to see you guys later.